Nobody dances with the girl in the corner. Nobody, until one guy did. And what happened next changed both of their lives forever. There are moments in life that look small from the outside. A simple gesture, a hand reaching out, a few seconds of courage. But sometimes those tiny moments carry the weight of the world. This is a story about one of those moments. A charity gala in Chicago. A young guy who had nothing to gain, and a girl who had spent years believing she was invisible. By the end of this, I promise you, you're going to see kindness differently. Ethan Caldwell was not someone you'd notice in a room full of rich people. He was 26. He worked as a junior events coordinator, basically the guy who made sure the flower arrangements were in the right place and the microphones didn't cut out during speeches. He wasn't there to network. He wasn't there to impress anyone. He was just doing his job at one of the biggest charity galas in Chicago. The venue was the kind of place that makes you feel like you don't belong the second you walk in. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, women in expensive dresses, men in suits that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. Everyone was laughing, shaking hands, pretending to care about causes they'd write a check for and forget about by Monday morning. Ethan had been to enough of these events to know how they worked. Rich people performing kindness for other rich people. That was the game, but then he saw her. She was standing near the far wall, holding a glass of water. Not wine, water, like she was trying to disappear into the wallpaper. Her dress was dark blue. Her hair was down, and on the left side of her face and down her neck, there were scars. Old ones. The kind that come from something serious. Burns, maybe. The kind that life leaves on you when it's been cruel. Ethan didn't know who she was at first. He found out later. Scarlett Valentine, the only daughter of Richard Valentine, the CEO of one of the biggest investment firms in the Midwest. The man whose name was literally on the building they were standing in. And here was his daughter, hiding near the wall, alone, while everyone else danced and laughed and clinked glasses. Nobody was going near her, not because they were rude, at least not openly. But there's a particular kind of cruelty that looks like politeness. People glancing over, then quickly looking away. Conversations that stop just a little too early when someone walks past. Smiles that don't quite reach the eyes. Scarlett had lived with that her whole life. She knew exactly what it felt like to be the person everyone notices, but nobody actually sees. She had stopped expecting anything different a long time ago. That night, she had only come because her father asked her to. She planned to stay an hour, maybe less, and leave without anyone making it weird. She was good at that. Being invisible at events she was technically invited to. The band started playing something slow, the kind of song that pulls couples onto the dance floor and makes single people suddenly find something very interesting to look at on their phones. The floor filled up. Scarlett watched from her corner and quietly finished her water. And then Ethan walked over. She saw him coming and immediately assumed he was a staff member with a question. She got ready to say she was fine, she didn't need anything, she was just about to leave anyway. He stopped in front of her, and he said, and this is exactly what he said, because Scarlett repeated it later word for word, and he said, I've been standing near that pillar for the last 20 minutes trying to get the courage to ask you something. She didn't know what to say to that, so she waited. He said, would you dance with me? I'm terrible at it, just so you know, like genuinely embarrassing. But I figured if I'm going to look ridiculous, I'd rather do it with someone who seems cool. She stared at him. For a second, she thought it was a joke. She looked around, half expecting someone to be watching, waiting to laugh. But Ethan wasn't looking around. He was just looking at her, waiting, nervous, real. She said yes, and they danced. Badly, honestly, Ethan was not lying about that part. He stepped on her foot twice. He apologized both times. She laughed, actually laughed, and it surprised her so much that she laughed again at the fact that she was laughing. They talked while they danced. He asked her what she thought about the flower arrangements. She said they were a little much. He agreed immediately and told her he'd spent 3 hours on them. That made her laugh again. He never looked at her scars like they were a problem. He never avoided them in that obvious, trying too hard way people sometimes do. He just talked to her, like a person, like she was just a person. When the song ended, she told him, quietly, almost like she didn't mean to say it out loud, I won't forget this. He smiled and said, good, neither will I. They went their separate ways that night. Ethan went back to making sure the event ran smoothly. Scarlett found her father, said her goodbyes, and left. No numbers exchanged. No dramatic movie ending. Just that one dance, that one conversation. But here's the thing about moments like this. They don't stay small. Scarlett went home that night and sat in her room for a long time. She thought about how she had walked into that room already shrinking herself, already prepared to be overlooked. She had done that so many times that it had become automatic. Walk in, find a corner, wait until you can leave. That was her plan for every event, every room, every situation where she might be seen. And one person, one random guy with terrible dance moves and genuine eyes, had completely broken that pattern in about 4 minutes. She started thinking about all the times she had made herself small, all the events she skipped, all the pictures she avoided, all the times she said no to things because she was so tired of being stared at, or worse, being pointedly not stared at. She had let the scars on her skin decide the size of her life. That night was the first time in years she thought, maybe that's not okay. Maybe I've been letting something outside of me control something inside of me. She started therapy a few weeks later, not because of Ethan, she said that herself, but because of what that moment reminded her, that she was worth showing up for, that a stranger could see that even when she couldn't see it herself. Over the next year, she started saying yes to things. Not all at once, not overnight, slowly, a dinner she would have skipped, a work event she would have made an excuse for, a photo with her dad she would have moved out of frame for. Small yeses, one at a time. And Ethan? He had no idea any of this was happening. He went back to his job, moved to a new firm a few months later, and mostly forgot about that night, or thought he did. He said later that something about that conversation had stayed with him. He didn't know why exactly. It was just one dance. But he kept thinking about the way she had looked around when he asked her, like she was checking if it was safe to believe him. That stayed with him. They ran into each other again. Not at a gala, not anywhere dramatic. At a coffee shop, 14 months later. She recognized him first. She walked up and said, "You stepped on my foot twice." He had no idea who she was for about 3 seconds, and then it clicked. They talked for 2 hours that day. She told him what that night had meant to her. He was quiet for a long time after she finished. Then he said, "I almost didn't walk over. I walked past you 3 times first." She thought about that. 3 times. 3 moments where he could have kept walking, where he could have told himself it wasn't his place, or it would be awkward, or she probably wanted to be left alone. 3 chances to do nothing. He chose the 4th. That's the thing about courage. It doesn't always look like jumping in front of something. Sometimes it looks like walking back, trying again, asking a simple question you're afraid of the answer to. One small decision, one outstretched hand, one song neither of them danced well to, and a girl who stopped making herself invisible. If this story got you, the next video on screen is going to hit even harder. Go watch it right now.